Everyone, this is Nikachu, Merfolk Master, and today I want to talk about humans, I want to talk about spirits, and I want to talk about the future of Merfolk, where Merfolk has to go, and what we have to be doing with Merfolk. Because there has been, for the longest time, Merfolk was the only Merfolk deck on the block. And now today, we've got a lot of people saying, well, now Humans is just the better Merfolk deck. Spirits is a better Merfolk deck. Merfolk is getting pushed out of the format. And I would like to address these issues in this video. For example, in my opinion, Humans isn't even close to a Merfolk deck. And I know Humans is doing incredibly well. It's doing very strong, but they have barely any similarities. I can't say that at all that this is a Merfolk deck. I mean, they have a mana base that is completely vulnerable to Blood Moon. Of course, they have some basics. They have Ether Vial, but really, their mana base can get completely shut down by Blood Moon, unlike ours, which has a lot of islands. We're not so vulnerable to Blood Moon. Their interaction has no counterspells whatsoever. Our interaction involves many counterspells, either in the form of Spell Pierce, Chalice of the Void, Deprive, Dispel, and occasionally Curse Catcher if it's ever positioned. They are legitimately an aggro deck. Humans is completely an aggro deck. They can get very fast starts with Noble Hierarch into Mantis Rider, into Champion of the Parish, into Thal's Lieutenant. They can get really ahead on board and put a lot of pressure on the opponent from the very start of the game and force the opponent to have answers, or else they'll get run over. Whereas Merfolk has never been an aggro deck. Of course, in some scenarios we can take an aggro strategy or style, but in general we're very slow compared to any other creature-based deck. Their Humans interaction, if they don't have counter spells, but they have things like Freebooter to snatch cards, they use Meddling Mage to lock your opponent out of the game. I mean, you could say like maybe Reflector Mage reflects Harbinger of the Tides in some way, but also they have very little evasion. Their evasion involves Mantis Rider, and that's it. But instead, they're much more about just brute force, aggressively trying to get through with their creatures, whereas Merfolk can win with unblockable creatures. We have the Island Walk, we have Spreading Seas to combine with that in order for us to have Island Walk. Now, what I'm trying to say is Humans isn't even close to a Merfolk deck. They have no similarities. I mean, the only lord that they have is like Thal's Lieutenant. And they can copy with Phantasmal Image, whereas Merfolk is much more Lord dependent. We've got Lord of Atlantis, Master of the Pearl Trident, like actual anthem effects onto the battlefield. And whether you think that is better or worse than Thal's Lieutenant, is up for debate. There are positives and negatives. Thal's Lieutenant is a great card. It's like a Champion of the Parish that also distributes counters. It's great. Does not offer unblockability to any of the creatures, whereas it does with ours. So there's a very different style of Lord effect in that way. But the only similarities is that they're tribal and they use Ether Vial. That's about it. I can't say that Humans is in any way a Merfolk deck. They have different advantages and disadvantages. And one of the best advantages to Humans is it's relatively easy and straightforward to play because it is an aggro deck. And when you pick up Humans, you definitely can play it like an aggro deck because that is exactly what it is. And you jam your creatures and you attack and you try to get your opponent dead as quickly as possible. Whereas if you take that approach with Merfolk, it will backfire badly. It will backfire horribly, which maybe comes to something that Andre Strasky said recently. He said that Merfolk is just a reckless aggro deck, and that it's not as good as Humans. It's not as good as Spirits. So that's what he was implying. And, well, I mean, if he's going to treat Merfolk like an aggro deck, then you're going to lose with it. You're just going to lose with it. Any of you who have been part of this channel for years all know that I treat Merfolk like a mid-range deck, more like a mid-range pseudo-control deck. That is how you unlock the full potential out of Merfolk. If you play Merfolk like an aggro deck, you're not going to get the full value. And Andre Strasky is a very talented player, multiple Platinum Pro year player. He's top 8 at Grand Prix. He just won a Grand Prix recently. But he doesn't know anything about Merfolk. He doesn't know how to unlock the full potential of Merfolk. I mean, what are his results with Merfolk? It's a very talented player. He has results with a lot of other decks, but nothing with Merfolk. So I don't think it was a very fair judgment to say that Merfolk was a reckless aggro deck, especially when I feel like Spirits is actually much more of the reckless aggro deck. So now let's transition that into Spirits. Is Spirits a Merfolk deck? What can I say? Spirits is much more like a Merfolk deck. I mean, it is damn close. I mean, they can play around Blood Moon with basics. Of course, they have Ether Vial as well. But more importantly, they have Lord effects. They have actually natural evasion, like we have Island Walk. We have Island Walk, they have Flying, and Flying is still pretty damn good. They also have their Lord effects like Drog Skull Captain and the new Phantasm, the 1/3 flyer. That's a Lord. They have counter spells like Mausoleum Wanderer and Spell Queller. They have counter spells like Spell Queller. So they have that tempo approach, and they play much more at flash speed than even Merfolk does, because if you have Rattle Chains out, and I know Strasky didn't play so many Rattle Chains in his latest version, but if you got that out, then boom, you've got you have even more flash creatures, just like Merfolk usually plays things at flash speed with Ether Vial. So they've got a lot of the personality of Merfolk in Spirits, and damn, Spirits is a Merfolk deck. Now, is it a better Merfolk deck? Well, that is now up for the Merfolk community to decide, because at the moment there's a lot of momentum behind Humans. There's a lot of momentum behind Spirits. They've got the results. The results are there, people. It just won a Spirits at least won a Grand Prix. Humans, I don't think, has won any Grand Prix yet, but Spirits has won a Grand Prix. They're up there in the top 16s of a lot of Grand Prix tournaments and SCG Opens. It's doing very well. And that starts to feed from the Merfolk community. There's no doubt in my mind that a lot of people, maybe not abandoning Merfolk, but now pushing Merfolk to their second deck, moving Merfolk to like their fun deck, and their competitive decks are now becoming Humans and Spirits. There's this transition happening, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because as people start playing more Humans and Spirits, it's going to be getting more results. Now, I have to say that Merfolk, at least for the last year, has had some trouble because there were problems with Titan Shift, there was problems with Counters Company, and there's also problems with Lantern Control. And those were 3 really polarizing decks, all pretty bad matchups. And the fact of the matter is, it's really hard to beat all of them at once. So for that reason, Merfolk was suffering for quite a while. But then I sort of look at Spirits and Humans. How much better do they have of a matchup against any of these things? I would imagine, Humans, at least is really fast, can sometimes get out of the range of Anger the Gods with Mantis Rider into Thalia's Lieutenant, or maybe get a really good, or even freebooter the Anger the Gods out of their hand. But they still really collapse to Ensnaring Bridge. I mean, they have very similar problems, Humans and Spirits. I feel like their bad matchups are still very similar to Merfolk's bad matchups, except that apparently Humans and Spirits have a very hard time getting through Tron, and Merfolk does not have as hard of a time getting through Tron. We have a lot of tools to our disposal. We've got Spreading Seas. And what I'm trying to say is we need to look at the benefits of Merfolk, and Merfolk definitely needed to evolve. And over the last 4 months, the same 4 months that spirits and humans have been taking off, um, Merfolk, at least for me, has gone through massive surgery, major surgery. Recognized that Curse Catcher was terrible. It was not interacting with the format, could not interact properly against the blue-white control decks, could not interact properly basically against anything, and it was just a 1/1 vanilla creature against the majority of the format. I mean, Curse Catcher basically interacts best with like Burn, and that's about it. And so since May, I scrapped Curse Catcher and the win rate went up. Thanks to M. Hayashi putting up tons of results with Deprive, we realized Deprive is a very playable counterspell in Merfolk, and that really shores up our matchup against Titan Shift, because not only do we have a counterspell for any normal, regular situations that we would use Deprive, or Negate, I should say, we now have a counterspell for the creatures, and the two most important creatures would be Primeval Titan, also Snapcaster Mage. So those were two very big innovations, and I think we have another innovation on the way. We've got Mistcaller coming in for Merfolk, because the format is turning a little bit towards collected company spirits. Banned Spirits is very popular, and don't forget that Mistcallers can still interact with your opponent when they have Ether Vial. Not a great interaction, but still an interaction nonetheless, to prevent any creatures coming into play at a critical moment. But Mistcaller also interacts with all the new graveyard decks that are coming out. With all these, with Control being so big, the graveyard decks are becoming very popular. We're seeing Dredge, Bridgevine. Hollow One is like semi a graveyard deck. It's like mostly like a discard Hollow One deck. But I believe that we see a lot. I think Merfolk is moving in the right direction. And what I want to get to is that I think people are counting Merfolk out a little too early. I think Merfolk is actually very well positioned. I top 8'd 5 PPTQs in a row, and I won one of them. So Merfolk is already going to be going to the RPTQ. I will be representing Merfolk in the RPTQ to hopefully get Merfolk on the Pro Tour. With that being said, like, even if you were to say all my opponents were complete ponies, all of them, that win rate was very high. It was over 80%. I did great. And it's also very similarly reflected online. I have a 5-0 result. So I'm doing amazing with Merfolk because I see a lot of potential out of Merfolk right now. I think Merfolk has gotten really well positioned. But the problem is all the attention is on humans. All the attention is on spirits. I want to also add why I think Merfolk is very well positioned in Modern right now. Blue-white control has narrowed the format down by a lot. The format used to be the Wild West. You could play against anything. I actually don't think so right now. I think blue-white control has been narrowing the format significantly. And I'm seeing I'm seeing a lot of graveyard decks, but I'm also seeing a lot of blue-white control. Blue-white control is dominating the format, and it's a great matchup. It's fantastic. If we have the right tools in place, we are not going to be losing against blue-white control at all, and we have a lot of angles of attack to beat blue-white control. Now, you could say the same thing for spirits, because spirits does play so much similar to Merfolk. But humans, I don't think has that edge. I don't think has that advantage. I think humans is also much more vulnerable to hate, because of Blood Moon and so on. I mean, humans is still up there. Humans is doing very well. I think humans, however, is statistically showing more results just because it's the much more popular deck at the moment, especially much more than Merfolk. So what does Merfolk need right now? Results. Merfolk needs published results. Because today, if anyone who is picking up Merfolk in the local game store, anyone, any pony, any bum can go up to them and just say, hey, look at the results. You shouldn't be playing Merfolk. You see? It's like 0%. You should be playing humans. Look, humans is winning. You should be playing spirits. Spirits is winning. Merfolk doesn't have anything to show for it. Nothing at all. So, in a lot of ways, We need to get results for Merfolk, and I try my best. I play like 90% of my play is all competitive leagues, but statistically, I can only get a 5-0 about once every 11 or 12 leagues, which is about normal. Like getting a trophy in a competitive league is just it's just a matter of jamming games. It's a matter of statistics, giving your win rate, and given my win rate, I should win a trophy once every 11 to 12 leagues. But the problem is, like, I can't jam that much. Optimistically, a league takes me about 2.5 hours. That's optimistically. Because if I play against control enough times, the league could take like 3.5 hours. So let's say uh, 12, 12 leagues times 2.5. It's approximately like 30 hours a week trying to get that trophy. And if I were to try to do that for a whole month, that's 120 hours. So it's just not practical given the amount of time and effort I have to put into the YouTube channel, time and effort I have to put into school. I just cannot get Merfolk on the map that often. And there's no guarantee that I can get any Merfolk list published either. I mean, I'm doing very well. I'm still getting results, but they just come, I get a 5-0 basically once every 3 months because that's in line with the amount that I'm playing, give or take some variance, and also give or take the rate that my list can get published. Because even if you get a 5-0, for some reason you may not get it, it may not get published because another Merfolk list might bump it out. Or sometimes Wizards isn't even going to publish it. Merfolk Joe has made many 5-0s, and he's been cheated out of the publication out of all his 5-0s. So like sometimes you can go 5-0 in a competitive league, and Wizards isn't even going to publish it. So how are we going to publish the results? Well, I'm going to have to play in Modern Challenges. The Modern Challenge it's every Saturday, which is generally pretty competitive for me. It's hard to make the Saturdays every single time, and also for like 5 weekends or 5 Saturdays over the last month and a half, I've had to play in PPTQs. So if I'm playing the PPTQ, that means I can't play in the Modern Challenge. There's a lot of big Magic events that happen on Saturdays. But I am going to try to play the Modern Challenges from now on for this channel, because as I jam them and I make top 32, the list will get published. I want to show people that this deck is playable. This deck is competitive, because it is competitive. This isn't some garbage deck. I don't want to go back to 2013 and 2014, where everyone was unanimously agreeing Merfolk is a tier 2 deck, and that's all the best that we can do. It was the entry point into Modern. You bought Merfolk to get into Modern, and then you abandoned it for something else. And I knew that was wrong. I knew it. I was the one winning 80% of the time. I made the Merfolk channel to show people this is how it's done. Right? This is how you play Merfolk. This is how you can win Grand Prix with the deck. And we got 2 people winning Grand Prix since then. And there's a lot of great things going for Merfolk right now that makes me believe that this deck is still great. That makes me believe you don't have to abandon it for spirits or humans. I mean, if you want to do it, you should. I want you guys to win. If you don't think you can win with Merfolk, you go to something else. So it's up to me to prove to the world and to show the world how Merfolk has to be played in order to still make it competitive, to show that you can still win tournaments with this thing. And I like where it's positioned. Lantern Control is dead. It's gone. Mistcaller can easily deal with all the Counters Company decks. It's a great piece of main deck interaction. It's a fantastic piece of interaction against the graveyard decks, against Dredge or Living End, against Bridgevine. It's fantastic. Gives you a killer game 1 ability. Interacts with Coco fantastically against spirits, and is a great 1-drop. Even against humans or spirits, you want that extra piece of aggression very early on in the game. Titan Shift. I haven't lost to Titan Shift for forever now. Ever since that we've been playing Deprive, I've been playing Phantasmal Image to copy the Primeval Titan, to either find Mutavaults or Tectonic Edges, to neutralize Tectonic Edge either their Valakuts or I bring in the Mutavault so I can attack for a ton of damage. I mean, if I violin Phantasmal Image, copy Primeval Titan, get 2 Mutavaults, I have 10 power on the board, and if I just like Merfolk Trickster their Primeval Titan, then it gets tapped down and I'm attacking at least for 10, which is enough for the win. So I haven't lost a Titan shift for a very long time, ever since these adjustments have been made. So the unbeatable matchup Lantern Control, it's gone, and our bad matchups are now shored up. And I think our deck is interacting very well with the rest of the format. We can race humans. We've got the tools. We've got the gut shots. We have Merfolk Trickster. We have Lords. We can stabilize with Master of Waves. And Spirits is a Merfolk deck. But the difference between Spirits and us is that our threat density is higher, so we are going to be much more likely to grind out a matchup like Mardu Pyromancer. We're much more likely to grind out Jund. I think we actually have a better control matchup than... well, I don't know if we have a better control matchup. We have got great tools for the Blue-Eye control matchup. They've got great tools as well in the form of Selfless Spirit, but those cards don't matter in the face of Terminus or Settle the Wreckage, whereas our counter spells are going to matter in both those scenarios. But our threat density is higher. They're playing with like 21 to 22 lands, 3 Ether Vials, 4 Noble Hierarch, so they don't have as many tools as we do in terms of threat density. And on top of that, we've got Master of Waves, which can stabilize a very pathetic, horribly poor position board. They've got great cards, but we've got great cards as well. So I want to show the benefits to Merfolk. But the most important thing is I need to publish results. I'm not doing it at a fast enough rate, and if I can do it even twice a month by playing in the Modern Challenge and getting into the top 32, because Wizards will always publish the Modern Challenge lists. So that's more important than anything. A lot of people in the Merfolk community, they say they're doing well, and that's great. But the most important thing right now is we need results. We need to challenge the results of humans and spirits. And I think the most impactful thing that I can do for the Merfolk community right now is to get published results so that at the very least people can point back to Merfolk being in the game. Look, Merfolk is winning. It can be done. It can be done consistently, because my results are very consistent right now. I'm doing very well. I am getting published results. It's just not at a fast enough rate. So that's sort of my rambling about Merfolk, about its position in relation to humans and spirits, the benefits of Merfolk. I think Merfolk has a very bright future right now. The most important thing to Merfolk is it's so flexible and it's adaptable. Think of the big changes that have been made to the deck, even over the last 4 months. We got rid of Curse Catcher. We added 4 Phantasmal Images. We've added Peak. Well, I've added Peak. Very fantastic card. Great in so many matchups. Having perfect information helps against everything. Well, a little less so against the graveyard-oriented decks. We've added Deprive over the last year. It's had a major overhaul. I've added Venser because it's very good against combo and control. And on top of that, still being an answer to things like Worship and stuff like that, while being a body that can attack. So the deck has gone over major changes. I'm having great results, and now I have to prove it. I have to do it for Merfolk. I don't want to go back to 2013, 2014, where Merfolk was the entry point to Modern, and then people abandoned it for someone else. You don't have to abandon Merfolk. Merfolk is still great. I know a lot of people are reporting that Merfolk is great at their local game store because Merfolk is still powerful in narrow meta games. It always has been. You customize it perfectly to destroy everything. If everyone's playing Bogle's Storm or I don't know what else. You can main deck. In fact, you can main deck Chalice of the Void. You main deck Tiebinders if there's a lot of green creature-based decks and burn. You do what you have to do, but I want to show that Merfolk is still good in an open tournament. Merfolk can still win Grand Prix. So going forward in the channel, I'm going to be playing in Modern Challenges from now on. In the past, Modern Challenges were awkward because they were like at least 7 rounds long, so they were sort of exhausting to do. And also, if I was doing poorly in the modern challenge, it's like the tournament was just dragging on. You're sort of waiting for the tournament to end so that we can have a fresh start. So my format now going on in the future will be I'm just going to play 5 rounds. I'm going to record 5 rounds of the modern challenge, and if I am 3-2 and worse, we just cut that series right then and there because I have no chance at top 8. However, if it is 4-1 or better, then we keep the series going on to see if I'm going to make top 8 or not. So I hope you enjoy my ramblings. I hope you enjoy the video, and I hope you're excited for me to be playing modern challenges from now on. I'm going to make the time for them. This has been Nikachu talking about Merfolk and its relation to humans and spirits in modern.